Well, hi Josh. Thanks for joining me on this podcast here. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me, Zach. I'm doing pretty good, actually. I just got moved into a new apartment, just started a new job. Life's going pretty well.
Life is going. It's going pretty well. Just trying to work every day to make life a little better for those around me, including you, and including Jacob, who I guess has decided to ignore the both of us and not join our podcast call
Yeah,
here. I guess he
you
didn't
know
want to be
what?
involved,
Honestly,
even though
I
this
think
was.
it's like podcasts don't really work with two people, in my opinion. It's like you can have a conversation, but it's like that third person that really ties everything together. And I guess he decided that he didn't really want that.
If you want, I guess we can start without him, or if you want to wait on him, I guess we can.
I feel like it'd just be weird to wait on him. We can go ahead and start. If he decides to show up, then
Yeah.
we'll include him in whatever's happening.
Yeah, he has horrible movie taste anyway. But oh, hey, wait, actually, wait, he's joining right now. I see him joining in right now. Jacob, you with us?
Yeah. Hey guys, sorry.
Look what the cat drug in.
Sorry, I'm late. Yeah, sorry, I'm late. I know it's unprofessional. It's our first episode and everything, but I just had to bring this down to a low boil here. So yeah. Anyways, if it has been said already, welcome to Cooking with Monomyth.
Wait, what?
Today,
Wait. What?
What?
Cooking with Monomyth?
Welcome to
What did you say?
Cooking with Monomyth. That's the podcast we're doing. We talked about it, right?
How did you get cooking from film review podcast?
They sound nothing alike.
Film review.
There's not even a C in film review.
You know, this really is. This is on me. This is not the first time something like this has happened. I usually get those two confused. Give me just 1 minute. I'm going to clear out my my oven here. Okay, should be good.
You have watched a movie, correct?
Oh yeah, I've seen a few.
Okay.
I think I know
you'll
what.
be okay
I
then.
think I have enough just like prior knowledge that I can work my way through this.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see how that goes. I guess it's on me and Josh to carry this episode then.
But hey, if you need any advice about cooking, I learned quite a bit this week. I now know the difference between boiling and broiling. It's a slight difference, but it's actually really important. But that's
Wait,
what's
what's the
difference?
I want to know now.
Yeah, what's the difference?
No. This is a movie podcast. Like, I don't want to hijack it any further than
Well,
I have
can I
already.
at least
We're already
ask
too
what you
far
were
off the
cooking?
rails.
Yeah.
No.
What were we gonna make first?
Okay, yeah, I'll tell you. Actually, I don't want to tell you. It's if I want to keep it to myself in case
You're right.
in case we decide to ever do a cooking podcast.
We're getting too distracted.
Keep it under wraps.
That's actually a pretty smart.
You're right.
idea.
All right.
It was a burrito. Kept it under wraps.
Oh, nice. Okay. Okay. We're gonna keep that under wraps. All right. Good to know. Okay. So before we dive too far into this, guys, we haven't exactly landed on a title for this thing yet, which is I've heard is important when
Is
you
it?
go to publish
Do
things like
have
these.
titles? All things have titles?
Most Renaissance paintings don't.
Really?
know?
That's actually news to me. Yeah.
There
I'm
you
guessing
go. Well, if you
cooking
hadn't
with
been-
Monomyth probably
Let's just
won't
call
work,
it
I'm guessing.
podcast number 47.
Podcast Untitled 47. Yeah. There we go.
What happened to
As a
the first
podcast?
46?
We don't talk about the first
They
46.
weren't well known.
That's
They weren't
fair.
classics. This one's a classic.
No.
Ah.
Yeah. This one's a
Everyone
classic.
will remember podcast 47 for generations to come.
No, you know what? I have a great name for a podcast. Y'all want to hear it?
Yeah, sure.
Screenwriting on the Wall. Isn't that a great name for a podcast?
Dude, that is the best name I've ever heard. Wild. Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
You
It
really
is a
come
great
up
name for
with
a
that
podcast.
just
all
now?
in. All in.
I don't know. Sometimes these things just come to me, I can't explain it.
You sounded a little off there, and I'm a little concerned about that. But other than that, no, that was great. I love it.
Awesome. So we'll go with that. So I think we're actually ready to finally get this thing underway. So everybody listening, buckle up, get ready for the inaugural episode of Screenwriting on the Wall.
Sounds better every time.
I love that title. Well, guys, it's no secret amongst you three that getting this thing scheduled, getting us all three together, finding time in our schedule to get this done, has been a Herculean challenge. Would you all agree?
Yeah, I would agree, and I would also add to that by saying that it's probably mostly my fault. Um, my
Well, I wasn't going to say anything.
my my move has pulled me away from things for a little bit, but I'm back. I'm back, and I'm ready to get the show on the road. I'm really excited for this. So.
Well, yeah. Well, luckily, we didn't date ourselves or hold ourselves to any timeline with the subject of our first episode, because since we're all just a bunch of random guys that grew up in Arkansas that decided that we like movies enough that we'll sit around for an hour and talk with each other about them, we decided we would let our audience in on what styles and types of movies influence our taste, so that going forward, people understand where we're coming from when we dislike and like and critically review and acclaim movies that come out in the future when we do this on a more timely basis. So I hope you guys are ready for that. I hope you prepared your movies to talk about. And then at the end, we'll have a nice little tidbit where we talk about a specific movie Josh chose for us. So stick around to the end and you can hear our takes on that particular movie. But we were not going to let you know until we get to the end. So are you guys ready to dive in?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So I will go first. With leading it off to set an example for you, my young pupils, and you all in the audience as to what to expect with these episodes of this podcast. So, for my three movies that I chose to represent my style and my taste in film and writing and story, the three movies I chose were Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, Mad Max Fury Road, and Good Will Hunting.
I feel like one thing we should maybe explain a little bit more to the audience, because it confused me initially at first, and I could just get confused easily, which that's probably likely. But this is not necessarily the same as our three personal favorite films, right?
Exactly. These aren't exactly going to be our favorite rewatchable every weekend movies that we can just watch on repeat. These are movies that we have chosen respectively to reflect our artistic style, our taste in our own productions, and also generally the stuff we like to partake in when we watch movies.
Which is also why when we do eventually get to my movies, I'll kind of touch on that a little bit more, because
why you broke the rules.
Broke the rules.
That's what you want to explain. Why you broke the rules. But to expound on the movies that I chose and to get into a little bit of the discussion on these movies, we'll go piece by piece. So starting out with the one that I don't think was a secret to either of you that was going to be on the list. The original Star Wars, which later became Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, when they started making all the other Star Wars movies.
To people who may not know, what is Star Wars about?
Oh my gosh. What is Star Wars about? So, if you've been living under the heaviest, oldest rock in pop culture existence, Star Wars is a movie that is basically King Arthur in space. And if you don't know what King Arthur is, there's no hope for you. So, go read King Arthur, imagine what that would be like in space, and then go watch Star Wars Episode 4.
Is that guy from Narnia?
That is that guy from Narnia, Josh.
The lion.
The lion. So the gist of why I chose Star Wars and why it is first on my list and the one I want to talk about first is because not only am I a huge fanboy for the franchise, and it's like that's my little cult that I like to exist to in pop culture land. I really like Star Wars because it is a classic tale. It's that classic hero myth, but it's this generation's, even though it's not really our generation's because it came out in the 70s. So it's kind of a previous generation's one, but it's a modern retelling of basically exactly what the old King Arthur hero goes and slays the dragon myth, just told in space. And that's what I really like about it, because it kind of shows that all these stories that have existed for time and time and time in existence just kind of keep getting retold in the current culture that they're told in. And I think Star Wars does an excellent job at that, because if you go back and watch Star Wars A New Hope, that movie goes so fast compared to what you're used to nowadays. you're just flying through that whole movie. But it never gets quoted really for having a pacing problem, and you don't ever feel like its pace is thrown off. It's just a real concise retelling of, good, regular person growing up, no aspirations in life, has this adventure thrust on him because he just happens to be who he is and also in the place that he is. Meets a wise old man. He gives him the ancient weapon. He teaches him how to use it. He goes. He loses the wise old man. Spoiler warning. And then he takes what he's learned. He takes the loss. He applies the knowledge. Defeats the dragon at the end.
I would like to rebuttal.
It's all it's done.
That does not all happen in Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope. Some of that happens after that movie. And considering that you only decided to add Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, I feel like none of that can be included in your comments.
Okay, so Josh, this is where you're wrong.
I think I have to agree with Zach on this one.
Because Star Wars initially was designed to be a one-off movie and was probably destined to be a commercial flop until it wasn't.
Because you could argue that the whole
yeah.
slaying the dragon was like Luke destroying the Death Star. Because
Exactly.
at the end of the hero's journey, they still have that return at the end. You can have multiple hero's journeys in one overarching story and have it still work. I think, at least.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, Josh, to the point that Darth Vader's still around, the Emperor's still around. But in the sense of the New Hope capsule,
you
the
thought you
Death
could pull
Star
a fast
is
one
the
on
big
old
bad.
Zach.
The dragon was not
on
slain.
Star Wars. Well, dragon's egg
sometimes in
was
life, there's more than one dragon.
Sometimes the real dragon was the friends we made along the way.
Also true.
Exactly. And I think using that good versus evil narrative, it's a good transition into the second option that I chose, which is Mad Max Fury Road. Because once we get to the last one, you really kind of lose that good versus evil narrative, and it becomes a more modern story in a sense, where they kind of dish that. But in Mad Max, I like the OG Mad Maxes that they made, I think also in the 70s
Mel
or the
Gibson.
80s.
I've never actually
remember.
seen those. I've only ever seen Fury Road, which I did really enjoy.
Fury Road is good. I think there's 3.
There are I
older
own
Mad
all of them,
Maxes.
and I've seen none of them.
Nice.
I have seen Fury
They're
Road.
like a bookshelf to you. It's like filled with books that I never read.
Yeah, that's pretty much my whole life, is just media I want to consume and will never have time to.
No. But Fury Road is good. I thought it was a really good reboot of the Mad Max franchise and whatnot. And since it's a newer movie and it was definitely out there visually and plot-wise, there are probably a large percentage of people that kind of know it existed but may not know what it's about. If you're not familiar with Mad Max at all, nuclear wasteland in Australia, where the original ones took place. Whole world's a desert. People drive these gangster cars, just stripped to the bone.
No, that's just what Australia is like. Like Australia's already like that.
It's a documentary. But this one guy, Max, exists in this. He's a former cop, is his kind of backstory, at least in the original series. I don't know if they carried that through to Fury Road. But he exists in this wasteland now, and it's a whole crazy culture that was dreamt up around this movie and all the weirdness that exists in it. It's really a trip and something worth watching. And Fury Road is a great modern one to watch to see if you're into it before watching the old ones if you're interested. But the reason it's on there is not really for anything story related or anything character related, even though I think both of those are pretty solid in that movie specifically. Fury Road exists as my spectacle piece. So if Star Wars was the way I like stories to begin and end and arc and everything, Fury Road is how I like to digest the middle part of that story where everything is kicking off. Because in Fury Road they did practical stunts, they did huge set pieces for different things. The whole movie is basically one big car chase across the desert with explosions and fights and all sorts of trouble happening along the way. And I love that whole spectacle because I think if you're going to use the medium of film, which a moving, talking picture on a massive screen in front of a whole bunch of people, you might as well go big with everything you can. And I know certain genres that's different, and I'm sure some of your guys' films will touch on different aspects of that. But for me, if you're going to put something on the big screen, you might as well use all of it in all the colors you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've only seen Fury Road, I think just one time, and it was a while back, but like I remember being just like, I remember wishing I could have seen it on the big screen. I rented it after its theater run ended. And yeah, I wish I could have seen that in theaters just because, like you said, they used literally every inch of that screen, like just with just the most outrageous special effects and action sequences. Like I thought it was fantastic.
What about you, Josh? You a man for spectacle?
I am, and I really think it's interesting that you brought that up for as one of the reasons you chose one of your films, because I did a similar thing. Obviously not the same movie. None of us chose the same movies. Although I did get pretty close with one of you, but I did the same thing. I chose a film for almost entirely because it feels like an epic. You know, it's like this large scale story that feels almost Lord of the Rings like. You know, not necessarily that I think Mad Max and Lord of the Rings are even on the same wavelength of type of thing. But in terms of, like, I don't know, this big this big scale story that feels larger than life in a way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, like the way it kind of transports you to like a completely different world than ours. You know, I think in terms of just like believability of a fantasy world, I think they're on the same kind of wavelength there at least.
Yeah, and Mad Max did, I think, in part to what I kind of mentioned leading into all that, was like the way they did it too, and the behind the scenes stuff that didn't make it to the screen made sure that there weren't any moments where you got pulled out of it. They never tried to do anything too ambitious that it would pull something out, and they just kept riding that line of the boundary that they could push and keep people sustaining their belief.
And, you know, to build on that, like, one thing I like about it that I think not enough films do is, like, they fully believed in their vision. And by that I mean they didn't, like, try to, you know, because there's a lot of weird stuff in there. You got, like, people, like, putting spray paint on their mouths and stuff like that, and it's, like, portrayed as something, you know, totally normal. It doesn't stop and, like, you know, give a little wink to the audience, like, hey, this is weird, isn't it? You know, like, it just shows you, like, hey, this is this fantasy world, and, like, it just lets you soak it in. You know, it doesn't try to over-explain it or anything like that, which I really like.
I would love to take that point a step further and say that I think that is integral to building a... Like when you're serious about the world that you're building, that is an integral part of it, is being fully committed to that world and not taking steps back from it to say... You know, to give a nod to the audience, like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be weird. Just live it.
Well, that happened.
The best stories, or the best storytellers are capable of writing things like that, where they are fully committed and just embracing the world that these characters are living in, without trying to make it, the aspects of that world, relatable to the audience, and rather making the characters themselves relatable to the audience. And that's what pulls you in.
Yeah, but I'm sure that with Fury Road and all the things you mentioned, Jacob, and the weird stuff in that movie, that when the production team fully committed, after they finished that movie, they were probably going to definitely need some therapy. And so when they go to therapy, they're going to want to go to the therapist that Will Hunting saw in Good Will Hunting, because that guy knew what he was talking
Segues.
about. You can rate my segues on Twitter. Josh will get back to you urgently with your hot takes on my segues.
They will all be 4 out of 10.
God, nah, 1.5 out of 10, please. Good Will Hunting, different from the other two movies, pretty drastically in most accounts, I would say. But it made the list mainly because I wanted to show that I did have some diversity and didn't just like action movies. Like, I can understand it. I can watch a serious movie and get something out of it. So give me a pat on the back for that, at least. But I like Good Will Hunting because it touches on an aspect of writing subject matter that I really enjoy, which isn't just let me tell this fantasy story, let me tell this adventure story, let me, just let me come up with something or kind of take off into this fantastical land. Good Will Hunting really was like, okay, what if there was a guy that was born in Southie in Boston, in South Boston. What if there was a person born into a community where it's a really social community, it's a really tight-knit community, but he's different. Like, he knows he's different, people know he's different, but he can't accept that he's different, and he can't accept what he can accomplish. And it decides that it's going to tackle that subject matter, or just a serious subject matter about the human condition. And I increasingly, as I think I have matured in my taste in film, I like shows and movies that take on aspects of the human condition that people don't think about because it's hard to think about. And if you only think about them academically, you're going to need a thesaurus, a dictionary, and a couple PhDs to fully understand everything. But good writers and storytellers can take all that, condense it into a narrative, play it from beginning to end, and give you something to take home to think about, to maybe apply in your own life, or to think about the people around you in a different way and people's situations, and really make you a more complex person with 2 hours of runtime.
Jacob, are you still cooking?
Oh man, yeah. 1 sec.
Well, I mean, I wasn't gonna bring it up. I thought he had stopped, but man, I just heard.
I did, but I forgot.
I
forgot I left
too.
something in the oven. But I think it's good now. I just had to rotate it, and now it's gonna cook for a little longer, and it should be fine.
Why are you still cooking? This is full undivided attention time, Jacob.
Hey, man's gotta eat,
I guess, whatever. Thoughts on Good Will Hunting, if you heard any of what I just said,
He was
Chef
definitely
Boyardee.
distracted, and I was distracted by him being so distracted cooking.
No, I have watched Good Will Hunting, and I really enjoyed it. I think I've only seen it one time, and I think I was in college, and I was doing homework while I was watching it, so I couldn't give it my full undivided attention. But I remember still, it's still impacting me emotionally, so I feel like that speaks to kind of the power that movie has.
Josh, you got any thoughts? Have you even seen Good Will Hunting?
So this is the first time that one of us has to sit down and go, I haven't seen that movie, so it's really hard for me to actually comment
Absolutely
on it.
broken. Man,
we get to force each
but I
other
can't
to
fault
watch
you.
one
It's an
movie
older
per
movie.
episode.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
So
it. It's on the
it's
watch
coming.
list.
It's
on
coming in the
watch list, and
pipeline.
I love Robin Williams and I like Matt Damon, so I'm sure.
Yeah.
It is
It
very
certainly
good.
makes the Robin Williams list to watch if you want to watch all his good movies. But those are my three that I chose to represent my style. So you got Star Wars, classic hero story, beginning to end, a little bit of action, we don't know that Leia's his sister yet, so you can kind of throw in boy gets the girl, whatever. But we won't talk about that in depth because it gets a little weird. Thanks, George Lucas. But classic hero story, good versus evil, a little bit of action. Mad Max Fury Road, spectacle that can be conveyed on the big screen.
A little bit of story,
right.
a lot of action.
Yeah, suspension of disbelief, how to get your audience to go on board with you and enjoy it and not ask too many questions and be right along with you for the ride. And then Good Will Hunting, the aspect of storytelling that I like of examining aspects of the human condition and figuring out ways to convey those to millions of people in a very understandable way that will impact people differently. Those are my three. It took a little bit to get through them, and since you guys have more than 3 movies, we should definitely move on to your guys in rapid pace.
Well,
so, Josh, I deem you to go up first,
Okay,
sir.
that's fine.
Since Jacob is going to have to man his oven and kitchen utensils periodically, apparently.
Yeah, good luck with that. I can't wait to see how the burrito turns out. I would like to start off by saying that although I did choose more than 3 movies, I am only going to talk in depth about the main 3 that I chose. And I only wanted to mention the runners-up because I felt like they were still integral parts of the process. But yeah, I'll go ahead and get into mine. And instead of listing all of mine out beforehand, I'll kind of list them out as I go through them. Starting with Interstellar. So I absolutely love Interstellar, and for me, along the lines of what you were saying with Fury Road, like to me that's kind of my spectacle movie in a way. It feels like this, big, larger than life thing. But beyond that, in addition to Fury Road, and in regards to the comments you made on little story, a lot of action, I feel like Interstellar does go a step further in serving its story a lot more as well, just because it's more emotional, in my opinion. And that is kind of the crux for all of my favorite movies. I build my 5-star reviews around the sole purpose of, does it make me cry? And I really love that. And Interstellar is fortunately one of the movies that makes me cry. And I love the idea that it's this large scale epic story that, the cheesy parts of the movie that transcend time and space, and it's love. It's like there's love behind all of that, and human existence, and even apparently beyond that. But it also takes one of my favorite things in general, and that's just sort of elements of time travel, which is something that Christopher Nolan just tends to throw into every single one of his movies. He's like,
He can't get away from time travel.
Exactly. Christopher Nolan starts writing a movie and he goes, how am I gonna throw time into this one? But Interstellar is so great, and I absolutely adore Matthew McConaughey, so that definitely helps. But that's kind of why I chose Interstellar. I feel like those are pretty basic reasons, but at the same time, it definitely plays into one of my favorite types of movies. And I'll kind of mention another movie that sort of fits into the category as well in my runners up. But we can comment on Interstellar if you guys have any comments on Interstellar.
I actually have not seen Interstellar all the way.
Oh no!
I've seen enough of it. I've seen enough of it to follow along, and like I know what happens.
Oh, and that's a
I have
movie
not
you
sit
got.
down and watch it.
That's a movie you got to sit down and just like take it all in. Like you can't just watch bits and pieces of it and get the full experience.
Here, take this from people who have not seen Good Will Hunting and watched Good Will Hunting while doing homework. I will not take it.
You got to do what you got to do, man. But yeah, Interstellar is great. Like, it's probably up there with The Dark Knight for like my favorite movies from Christopher Nolan. Interstellar, I think it's got just about everything you could want in a movie. Like, it's got fantastic performances. The score is amazing. The visuals are top notch. The story,
it's got Matt Damon.
Yeah,
Another surprise.
It's got it all. It's got it all.
Yeah, is he the through line through all of our movie choices?
I don't think my 3 movies, any of them have Matt Damon.
Well, you're not cool enough to like Matt Damon, so. What's the next one? What's your next hot
So
take?
moving away from Interstellar, but still in the general theme of movies that very easily make me cry, I will move on to another movie. These are the first 2 movies that I'm going to mention are the only ones that are actually in my top 4 favorites, and the third one, similar to you, I kind of wanted to switch it up to show, I guess a change in taste. Just because these are supposed to kind of represent my movie taste as a whole. But my second one is Into the Spider-Verse. A brilliantly animated movie. I could legitimately say nothing bad about this film whatsoever. But for me, it is primarily the story that it serves to tell in Miles. I am a very, very big Spider-Man fan. Not just with Peter Parker, but I'm a fan of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. So being able to see Miles come to life on a big screen was pretty cool on its own. Seeing it happen in the way that it did, and the story that they were able to tell with him is also really good. I feel like Spider-Man's so overdone at this point. So having something slightly different for a diverse character like that was really interesting. But I really like Miles like figuring thing out story. Like it really revolves around him not wanting people to lay expectations on him. You know, one of the differences um, between him and Peter Parker is that, you know, Peter Parker as Spider-Man kind of feels a calling to his duty, and Miles does eventually get to that point, but for the most part he hates the fact that he's gotten this power, you know. He's come upon the ability to do big things, and he doesn't want it. He just wants to be a kid, and he doesn't want anybody to have all these expectations from him. And it really ties his character together with his acceptance into Visions Academy and going into a new school and wanting to quit because he doesn't want anybody to start building up this idea of him that he can't live up to. And then he becomes, you know, one of the most famous people in the entire city of New York, and being a Spider-Man and having to live up to the enormous expectations that come with that. And I really like that, and his relationship between him and Peter B. Parker is brilliant. Absolutely love how that all culminates together in the end, and how they almost really help one another realize that life really is just, you know, a leap of faith, and having to take chances and coming out on the other side not really knowing how it was going to go when you started.
Yeah, well, like it's not really coming of age. It's like it's more like coming into responsibility.
Yeah.
Or acceptance with the next steps in life. Okay with change.
I feel like that. A lot of that.
I feel like it could be all those
Yeah, I feel like a
things.
lot of that
Yeah.
encompasses all together and into a coming of age story in general.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I think
Into the
that's a great
Spider-Verse
choice.
is hard.
Yeah,
Hard
I think-
to say anything bad about Into the
It
Spider-Verse.
really is.
Yeah, that's easily one of my favorite movies, and like I'm not even a big like superhero guy, and like I'll watch Spider Verse like literally any day of the week. If somebody says let's watch Spider Verse, I'm like heck yeah, like let's watch it.
All right. So what's your curveball choice? You said this one was going to be your curveball
Yeah,
choice.
so my curveball choice, my last choice that I chose on my top three, is 500 Days of Summer, which is a rom-com. I don't know if either of you guys have ever seen this movie.
Nope.
This is the only one I haven't seen so far.
So neither of you guys have seen 500 Days of Summer.
Give us the rundown.
Okay, so basically what it's about is this dude that meets this girl named Summer, and he dates her for 500 days. And the story is not told chronologically for the most part. It skips around in time like a lot.
Did Christopher Nolan direct this
no,
movie?
he did not.
With the time
Last
travel thing?
question about it, is Matt Damon in it?
No.
Okay.
I apologize to disappoint the both of you, but yeah. So this guy meets this girl named Summer, and dates her for 500 days, and it's a rom com, and it's kind of about the lessons that he kind of learns along the way in some sense, but the story, or it's really kind of complicated to explain why I chose this one. Because it's more of just like a general vibe that this movie kind of gives off for me. And that's kind of weird to explain. But it's also the
Passes
reason...
Josh's vibe
It's also the
check.
reasons that I wanted to put it in here. Like, there were other movies like that I wanted to put in this third place spot. But, again, all of my top four favorites are movies that are going to make me cry. Like they kind of fit in, like, even though they might be different types of movies overall, they all fit into like that general sense of emotion. And there's really not much of that in 500 Days of Summer. It's really, like, it really does soak up the rom-com theme, and it doesn't play too much into emotions so much as it does kind of quirkiness. But I like it a lot. There were a couple other movies that I actually considered putting in its spot, just that, again, fit the general same vibe of that film. Like About Time. I don't know if you guys have ever seen About Time. Another
I've heard
one
of it, but
that I
No.
really like, that I think just has like a general vibe that I like.
I'd like to watch more rom coms because it's kind of a blind spot on like my favorite films. I don't have many rom coms that I like
Right. Like
personally.
I haven't seen terribly
Hey
many,
man,
but like I'm a general fan of a good rom com.
Yeah.
Like they're really really interesting to watch and kind of follow, and you don't have to pay as hard attention to them as maybe you do with more in-depth stories, I guess I would say. But I
yeah,
also want to quickly touch, since neither of you guys have seen that movie, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of skip on to, I want to quickly touch on my runners-up.
All right, so are these like in your other
Oh,
are these
God.
your other favorite movies?
So,
Louise.
two of them are the other
This
movies.
is him bending the rules.
Two
This
of them
is what it
are on my top four favorites. So my top four favorites are Interstellar, Into the Spider-Verse, It's a Wonderful Life, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Not in that order, but
Nice.
those are all in my top four on Letterboxd. But I love It's a Wonderful, and I'm not going to go into these because I know we got to get into Jacobs, but I love It's a Wonderful Life. It totally fits the general theme of movies that make me cry as well. Fellowship of the Ring was one of my other runners-up, which again playing back into the whole spectacle thing, like Interstellar. I didn't want to touch on Lord of the Rings as a whole, but I love Fellowship of the Ring. I think it's the best Lord of the Rings movie. And then Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is fairly recent addition to one of my favorite movies ever, if not my favorite movie ever. And it absolutely makes me laugh and cry immensely. It is so good.
Just as an anecdote off Everything Everywhere All at Once, Josh and I actually saw that movie together, and I can vouch for the fact that it made him cry because during the credits I could hear sniffling from beside me, and I looked
that is
over
the
and like
most I've ever
there were
cried
tears
during a
rolling
movie.
down his
I was
cheeks.
sobbing, like loudly sobbing in the theater.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like it definitely made me tear up more than once. But like this man was like,
But I was like
it hit him
laughing
hard.
in that
Like
helped, because like you get added
Yeah.
to
Oh
the
my
tears
goodness.
when I was laughing as hard as I was too. I mean, the entire final
yeah,
act.
it's
I
a
just
great
couldn't
movie
stop.
though. Yeah,
So it
great
sounds
movie,
like
though.
your general style across it is you like some of the spectacle, you like some of the fun aspects that film allows you to implement into a story, but ultimately when you're writing that story and it's just words on a page, you're going to go for the emotional through lines of
Yes.
life. You're going to go
And I
after
think that's
those.
because to me, I really like media that has a powerful impact on somebody, and people are going to get different impacts out of different movies. Everybody has different life experiences, or any piece of media for that matter. But for me, something that really I can connect to and find really emotional are the things that hits me the hardest in terms of having an impact on the way that I think and feel, and being able to put those thoughts back into my own life afterwards, and going, that movie quite literally, whether it's small or big, changed my life. And I would say that
Yeah.
those are the types of movies that I really take away from the most.